Marcus Reynolds sat at the dining table, staring at the empty plate before him. The candlelight flickered, casting long shadows across the room, but the warmth was missing. His home, once filled with laughter and love, had become a battlefield. Across from him, Mary, his wife of 10 years, crossed her arms, her expression carved from stone. The tension in the air was suffocating, thick with unsaid words and pent-up resentment. "You're a total failure, Marcus," she spat, slamming her wine glass onto the table. "I'm taking the kids and all our money. You have nothing left to offer." The words hit like a sledgehammer. Marcus blinked, trying to process the cruelty in her voice. He had known things were bad. Marriage wasn't what it used to be. But this was a declaration of war. "Mary, don't do this," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "We built this life together." She let out a humorless laugh. "We? No, Marcus. I built this life while you sat around chasing your useless dreams. You lost your job, you lost your respect, and now you've lost me." His fingers curled into fists beneath the table. He wasn't perfect, but he wasn't worthless either. He had tried. God, he had tried. The startup he had poured his soul into had collapsed, leaving them struggling. But had she once stood by him? Had she once offered comfort instead of blame? Mary reached for her purse, pulling out a folded set of papers. "Sign this," she ordered, tossing them onto the table. Divorce papers. Marcus swallowed hard, his pulse hammering in his ears. "Mary," he said slowly, meeting her eyes, "are you really willing to throw everything away? Our family, our memories, everything?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes." And with that single word, Marcus's world shattered. Marcus sat frozen, the divorce papers in front of him like a death sentence. His mind screamed for him to fight, to say something, anything that would stop this nightmare from unfolding. But the cold, detached look in Mary's eyes told him the battle had already been lost. She had made up her mind. A lump formed in his throat as he reached for the papers, his fingers trembling. His entire life, 10 years of marriage, 2 children, countless sacrifices, reduced to a few sheets of paper. "When did you stop loving me?" he finally asked, his voice hoarse. Mary scoffed. "Love? Love doesn't pay the bills, Marcus. Love doesn't fix a broken man who refuses to change." He clenched his jaw. "I lost my job, Mary. I didn't lose my ambition. I was trying to rebuild." "Trying?" she repeated mockingly. "Marcus, we were drowning while you were trying. I had to beg my parents for money just to keep food on the table. And do you know how humiliating that was?" Shame burned in his chest, but so did anger. He had worked himself to the bone for his business. He had believed in it. And yes, he had failed. But did that mean he deserved to be abandoned? "You didn't even try to stand by me," he said, his voice dangerously low. Mary rolled her eyes. "I gave you chances. You failed every time." She turned away, walking toward the stairs. "Pack your things. I don't want you here when the kids wake up." His heart lurched. "You're not taking them from me." Mary paused, looking over her shoulder with a cruel smirk. "That's where you're wrong. The court will never grant custody to a jobless, broken man. I'll have full control, Marcus. Over them, over our money, over everything." With that, she disappeared upstairs, leaving Marcus alone in the dimly lit room, drowning in a storm of emotions. Rage, heartbreak, and a creeping sense of despair. He had lost his wife. He was about to lose his children, and the world no longer saw him as a man. But something inside him shifted. If Mary thought he was weak, if she thought he would just crumble, she was about to realize just how wrong she was. Marcus Reynolds wasn't done yet. Marcus sat in the darkness long after Mary had gone upstairs, his mind spiraling into the abyss of failure. His hands clenched into fists, nails digging into his palms. His heart pounded with a mixture of rage and sorrow. Everything he had built was slipping away. His family, his dignity, his very identity. A sudden sound broke his trance, the soft padding of footsteps. "Dad?" His breath hitched as he turned to see Emma, his 8-year-old daughter, standing at the bottom of the stairs. Her tiny figure was barely visible in the dim light, her big brown eyes filled with sleep and confusion. He forced a smile, but it felt like a crack in an already broken mask. "Hey, sweetheart, what are you doing up?" Emma rubbed her eyes. "I heard you and Mom arguing." Her voice wavered. "Are you leaving us?" Marcus's heart twisted painfully. He wanted to lie. He wanted to tell her that everything would be fine, but the truth hung heavy between them. His throat tightened. He couldn't find the words. Emma's lip trembled as she stepped closer. "Did I do something wrong?" A sharp pain shot through his chest. He knelt in front of her, gently cupping her small hands in his own. "No, baby, never. This isn't your fault." Tears welled in her eyes. "Then why does Mommy want you to go?" He swallowed the lump in his throat. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Sometimes they forget what's really important." Emma sniffled. "But I don't want you to go." Marcus felt his world crack open. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close as she buried her face in his shoulder. The warmth of her tiny body against his own was both comforting and crushing. "I love you more than anything, Emma. Never forget that," he whispered. She clung to him, but after a few moments, her breathing slowed. She had fallen back asleep in his arms. Marcus gently carried her back to her room, tucking her in with the utmost care. He ran a hand through her soft hair, watching her peaceful face. Mary thought she had won. She thought she had stripped him of everything, but she was wrong. Because as long as Marcus had his children's love, he still had something worth fighting for. And he wasn't going to let her take that away from him. Not without a war. The next morning, Marcus woke up to an eerie silence. The house, once filled with laughter and life, now felt hollow. The smell of fresh coffee no longer greeted him. The warmth of family was gone. He walked into the kitchen, his footsteps echoing against the cold tiles. Mary sat at the dining table, sipping coffee, her face emotionless. "I've spoken to my lawyer," she said, not bothering to look at him. "I want full custody of the kids." Marcus froze. His fingers curled into fists. "You... what?" She finally met his gaze, eyes cold and indifferent. "I don't trust you to take care of them. You can barely take care of yourself." His blood ran cold. "You're not taking my children away from me." Mary leaned back, tilting her head. "And what can you do to stop me? You have no money, no job, and no future. The court will side with me." Marcus's chest tightened. "The kids need their father," she scoffed. "What they need is stability, and I'll make sure they get it." A pit formed in his stomach. "You've already decided, haven't you? This was your plan all along." Mary's lips curled into a smirk. "Of course. You were never a husband to me, Marcus. You were just a stepping stone." The words hit him like a physical blow. "You used me. I tolerated you." She set her cup down with a soft clink. "And now I don't have to anymore." Marcus's vision blurred with rage. He had given her everything. His loyalty, his trust, his love. And she had thrown it all away like garbage. "You're a monster," he whispered. Mary stood, grabbing her purse. "And you? You're a failure. That's why I'm leaving. And that's why I'm taking the kids. They deserve better." She walked out the door, leaving Marcus alone in the suffocating silence. His legs trembled as he sank into the chair. He pressed his palms against his face, breathing heavily. She was right about one thing. The court wouldn't side with him. Not unless he changed everything. His entire life had been shattered. But he wasn't going to let Mary destroy the last thing that mattered. If she wanted a war, she was going to get one. Marcus knew he couldn't sit back and let Mary take everything from him. Not without a fight. But fighting back required something he didn't have. Power. She had money, legal support, and a perfectly curated image of a mother who only wanted the best for her kids. He had nothing. That had to change. With a deep breath, he picked up his phone and dialed the one person he never thought he'd need to ask for help. "David, I need you." There was a pause, then a sigh. "After everything, you're finally admitting it?" Marcus closed his eyes. "I messed up. I pushed everyone away. But I can't let her take my kids." David didn't hesitate. "Tell me everything." For the next hour, Marcus poured out every detail. The betrayal, the money, the legal threats. When he finished, David let out a low whistle. "She played you like a game," David said. And you let her. I know. David's voice hardened. Then it's time you stop being a victim and start fighting back. Marcus spent the next few weeks rebuilding himself from the ground up. He took the first job he could find, not a glamorous position, but it put money in his pocket. He sold the house, trading in his past for a small apartment that, while modest, was his own. Every morning he woke up with purpose. Every night he fell asleep, exhausted but determined. He started reconnecting with old colleagues, networking, and finding ways to make himself useful again. Slowly, opportunities opened up. He took courses, learned new skills, and built a professional reputation outside of his marriage. And through it all, he fought for his kids. The first legal hearing was brutal. Mary's lawyers painted him as an unstable, unfit father. But Marcus stood tall. He presented proof of his progress. His job, his financial stability, his commitment to his children. He didn't just defend himself, he attacked. His lawyer revealed the truth about Mary's financial manipulations, how she had transferred assets before leaving, how she had emptied their accounts without informing him. The judge wasn't blind to the deception. By the end of the hearing, it was clear Marcus wasn't going to be cast aside so easily. He had made mistakes, but he wasn't the man Mary wanted the world to see, and he wasn't done fighting. The custody battle stretched on for months, each hearing a war Marcus never thought he'd have to fight. Mary's lawyers attacked his past failures, his financial instability, and even his emotional breakdown. But Marcus had something Mary never expected: resilience. Bit by bit, he proved his worth as a father. His job was steady now, his income growing. More importantly, his relationship with his children was unbreakable. Unlike Mary, who saw them as bargaining chips, Marcus showed the court what true love and sacrifice looked like. And then fate turned in his favor. One night, an anonymous tip reached his lawyer, a bank statement proving that Mary had siphoned more money than she let on, hiding it under a secret offshore account. When the evidence was presented in court, Mary's confident smirk vanished. The judge was furious. "You've deceived this court, manipulated financial records, and weaponized your children against their father," the judge declared. "I see no reason to reward such behavior." The final ruling was shocking. Joint custody, a legal audit of Mary's financial dealings, and Marcus receiving a significant share of the hidden assets. Mary's empire of lies crumbled in an instant. She confronted Marcus outside the courtroom, her face red with rage. "You think you've won?" she spat. "You're still a failure. You always will be." Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time he felt nothing but pity. "I used to believe that," he admitted, "but now I know the truth. I'm not a failure. I just failed to see the kind of woman you were." He turned and walked away, his kids running into his arms. For the first time in years, he felt free, not because he had beaten Mary, but because he had finally reclaimed himself. Epilogue. True success. Months later, Marcus sat in a small but cozy home, laughing as his children played. He wasn't the man he used to be, the high-earning provider with a perfect life on paper. He was something better, a man who had lost everything, only to rebuild himself from the ground up. A man who no longer needed money, status, or anyone else's approval to feel whole. As he tucked his children into bed that night, his youngest looked up at him with sleepy eyes. "Daddy, are we rich again?" Marcus smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. We're richer than we ever were." And this time he truly meant it.